say, I think.
Okay, so if you remember when the original Peter Rabbit came out, I was not a fan at all, and I referred to it as irritating rabbit. And I said, the problem with this is that it's not Peter Rabbit, and if you're familiar with the books, then you will be appalled. Which is something weirdly enough I've read loads. That phrase has turned up loads and loads recently in Peter Rabbit 2. So now, new movie, Rose Byrnesby having married Donald Gleason's Thomas McGregor. They've got a kind of small publication of a book. Enter David Yellow as Nigel Basil Jones, who wants to make the book bigger and perhaps corrupt the original. Meanwhile, Peter, voiced as before by James Corden, finds himself cast as the villain in this new version of the book, so he decides to act like one and teams up with a bunch of London toughs to rob a farmer's market. Here is a clip from Peter Rabbit 2.
What are you looking at, son? Never seen anyone steal something before? You some kind of goody-goody?
I'm no goody-goody. In fact, apparently I'm bad. Yeah, I've made some mistakes, which is what I thought kids are supposed to do, right? Learn, grow, evolve. But I guess for this rabbit, the die is cast. And you know what? I don't care anymore.
Well, good for you, son. But if I can just suggest one thing, next time you meet a grizzled old thief on the street, maybe don't open up so much.
Sorry.
Name's Barnabas. Nice to meet ya.
Peter.
Take a peach. You said you weren't a goody-goody.
No, I'm no goody-goody. I'm a baddie-baddie.
That's Lenny James as the voice of Barnabas and James Corden as the voice of Peter. Now, here's the weird thing. Simon Brew from Film Stories had got in touch with me before this and said, it's really weird because watching Peter Rabbit 2, it was almost like they'd made it for you, like they'd read your review. And then Linda Marrick, is a film critic I admire and respect very much, sent me a thing saying, I think there's a couple of gags aimed at you in the film. And anyway, so here's the strange thing about it. Firstly, I have to say, I actually rather like Peter Rabbit 2. There are several sections in it in which the question is raised of whether or not Peter's voice is annoying. Now, I know this isn't just me. And at one point he said, is my voice annoying? Somebody said, yeah, it's a bit polarizing. And then there's a gag about Peter not having read the book of, Peter Rabbit. And he hates the fact that he is the face of this franchise. And then there's a moment when they're with the publishers and Bea is asked if she has any plans for more books. And she says, well, not really, except I've been thinking of a 23-book series featuring 109 characters based on the animals in my life, creating an interwoven narrative about morality, nature and family set in field and town around the farm. And then later on, somebody else she says, I'd be spinning in my grave if it was ever adapted into some sassy hip fest purely for commercial gain, probably by an American. Okay, so I wasn't alone in criticising the first Peter Rabbit. I'm sure that the makers of Peter Rabbit haven't got a clue what I thought of it. But for all those critics who kind of sniped at the original, this does seem to be much more aware of it. And this time, a lot of the gags land. I mean, there's a gag about, we got to get into the farmer's market. How can we do it? How can we get past the gate? Oh, well, it's easy. There'll be a band there playing wildly mediocre folk music, which I have to say I did genuinely laugh about. Donald Gleason is funny. There's a sequence when Donald Gleason is boxing, which is kind of a bit Chaplin-esque, which I liked. There are genuinely funny jokes about how grown-up arguments are never about the thing that they appear to be arguing about and will go on for a week. There's a joke about a hipster dressed as a farmer, which I don't want to spoil for anybody. And David Oyelowo and his beautiful eyes as the publisher who wants to take everything away and turn it into something which is completely different. It's a great bit of casting. And if I'm not stretching this too far, the end of the film actually mirrors the end of adaptation, the Nick Cage playing the two sides of the Charlie Kaufman character by having its cake and eating it in terms of the meta-fictional thing. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't think it's a masterpiece, but I am more than happy to say that, I always say the thing about slamming another Transformers movie gives me no pleasure. I had no expectation of enjoying Peter Rabbit whatsoever, but I actually did. I mean, I was really pleasantly surprised, and it's actually pretty well. It's not Paddington. I mean, although like Paddington 2, it is better but it was so much better than I had expected. And hey, what do you know? Peter Rabbit 2, not bad.
Okay, well that's like a 5-star review, really, isn't it? If you're,
Now I want to know what our listeners think. I want to know what the listeners think, whether they're on the same page.